My name's Dragon Bear. It's funny, I haven't always been called that. At one point, my name was Rabbit. Would you believe that? Just remembering when I just turned 9. My dad and I were both hunters. We lived on the outskirts of town. We were part of town, but we just weren't of them. Yeah, we were always outcasts. They kept us close because they needed us, but they didn't want us in town, but we were okay with that. My mom died when I was pretty little, and my dad just never really talked about her much. I asked him one time what happened, and he just said that she died in her sleep. And he never talked about her again. It was just the two of us growing up. And on my 9th birthday, I was just old enough that I could pull back a bow to the fullest length. Before then, I was using a sling when I'd go hunting. I remember going hunting with my dad when I was young, and I just had the sling. We would be out walking along, and I would step on leaves or branch, and my dad would hit me in the heels, back of the heels, really hard with his bow. And all he would say is, roll your feet, and then he would just go silent. It was highly expected that you walk quietly through the woods, that nobody could hear you. When I was old enough to draw the bow, my dad woke me up one morning and said, son, it's time. Shoot your first deer today. And so we got up that morning, and I remember smelling the house. Of all things, like I smelled it every morning, every day of my life, but for some reason it was very distinctive. Like it was saying goodbye almost. It was very strange in essence. Just that smoky, smoldering smell. It was kind of chilly. It was middle of summer. And we went out just before the sun was starting to come up, and so we could hear the birds chirping in the trees. As we walked along the trail, I remember just being very mindful to roll my feet, as my dad would say, so that I don't step on anything. As the morning went along, my dad and I both noticed the deer trail going off to the left of where we were, and it took us back this ravine. I remember having to crawl over logs and down trees. And as we got through the ravine, we came out into this big open field, and right at the edge of this field was this ginormous buck. My heart stopped. I was afraid. I went to pick up my bow, but I was scared that I would miss. And I picked it up, and I was shaking, and all of a sudden I just felt this big, giant hand on my shoulder. My dad didn't say anything. It was just silent. But for that moment, I could breathe again, and I focused, and I aimed right for the heart. I remember the buck, this ginormous buck, he jumped and ran a few feet, and then he stopped. He just stopped and fell over. He was done. It's like he just knew he was done. My dad smiled at me as we were walking towards, and he said, Buck, let's go take care of your deer. And for some reason that name just really resonated. It bounced in my head. I felt so proud. My dad never really said much to me growing up, but those few words that he would say just repeat themselves in my brain often. By the time we cleaned up the deer, we were starting to head back through the ravine, trying to get this big, ginormous deer over the trees and logs. But we managed to do it. We got it up on the trail, and we made a little sled for it. And we were starting to walk back, and by the time we were on the trail, starting to head back home, the sun was starting to go down. And as we're walking along the trail, all of a sudden my dad stopped, and he just held up his hand, and he didn't say anything, and he lifted his bow. And I could tell that he was seeing or hearing something, and I didn't know what it was at that moment, but I remember just being afraid, just holding on to my bow, not sure what to do in that moment. And all of a sudden, this bear appeared like a shadow out of nowhere, and she came charging towards us. And I remember my dad pulling back his bow, all the way back with all of his might and strength, just calm as could be. Unshaken, unwavering, he stood his ground and he released. I remember watching that arrow switch through the air like a bird predator as it thudded into the chest of the bear. She roared in anger, and next thing I know, my dad grabbed his daggers and clashed with the bear as she jumped on top of him. And they wrestled, and all I remember is seeing claws, dagger, and fist wrestling through the air. And next thing I know, this bear was on top of my dad, and he was trying to stab the bear with his dagger. And I picked up my bow and I shot the bear, and finally the bear stopped. And I went over, my dad was just on his back looking up, and blood was just draining from his face and all over. He was just covered. I didn't recognize him in that moment. All of a sudden I heard feet come running up the trail, and I saw this old farmer, and he just started shouting. He's like, "You killed the bear! You killed the bear!" He was so excited, he just screaming, celebrating. I'm like, "But my dad can't come help." And the guy just didn't even hear me. My voice just kind of squeaked. I don't know if he didn't notice or just didn't care. And the farmer just started chanting. He's like, "You killed the bear. She's been killing all my livestock all this time, and I just haven't been able to kill her. She's just been killing all of my livestock. We have to tell the town and celebrate. This is a big deal. We've been coming after this bear for a long time." And he grabbed my hand, and he just, all of a sudden, he turned to me. He's like, "You are a mighty hunter, bear." And he raises my hands up and just starts chanting, "Bear, bear." As we go walking back into the village, next thing I know, all these other people came circling around us. And the guy just started shouting to everybody that I had killed this bear. And I tried telling them, I said, "No, it wasn't me, my dad, aren't you listening to me?" And they ignored me, and they all just started chanting. All of a sudden, this big group of people went back up the trail, and they found the bear, and they brought the bear back. But I didn't see my dad. I didn't understand. And they tied the bear up, and they made this big, huge bonfire. And they're all just screaming and yelling and dancing that I had killed this bear. And everybody's patting me on the shoulder. And all I could say is, my dad. And nobody heard me. As the night went on and the town was celebrating, all I could do was just think, I gotta get back to my dad. I grabbed my bow and I walked up the trail, and it was dark, pitch black, and I just remembered everything my dad taught me about walking through the forest in the night, just watching the tree line, taking it slow, paying attention to the way things moved, the way the earth moved. And I just walked with the earth in darkness. And I got back to my dad. By the time I did, the sun was starting to come up. And all I could see was this shadow of a man who was once mighty. And I just remember tears just on my face, falling. And I couldn't say anything. I just sat next to him and I held his hand. All of a sudden I heard this voice come out from behind the trees. And he said, "Hey, Rabbit, it's been a while. What happened?" It was my Uncle Lion. I hadn't seen him in 2 years. He just disappeared and never said anything. He just disappeared. I didn't know where he had gone. I told him the whole story, and I said, why didn't they care about my dad? And he said, "The town people, they don't care. They're only worried about their own safety. They don't worry about us. We will never be one of them. We will never be one of them," he said silently. He looks at me and he said, I'm sorry I'm late." I just glared at him, and I said, why did you leave? Where were you? You could have helped him. You should have been here." And I just started screaming. And he just reached over and he hugged me. Didn't say anything else. All of a sudden, the bushes. There was another rustling in the bush. And this tiny little bear cub. come out from under the brush, looking for his mom. My uncle looked at me and he said, "This is your responsibility. You need to take care of this cub, just like you are my responsibility. I will help you become a man, but you must help the bear. He is your responsibility. He is your brother." From that point on, I raised that bear. I always just called him brother, never really gave him a name. But that's what he was he was a brother. Please, come, sit. You look like you're up for a story. Have a seat.